Welcome back. This is going to be the last segment in our initial look at the concept of self-identity. And we're going to go through some things that involve the concept of masculinity. As we continue our dive into a sense of self, the final stage of self-awareness hits us like a ton of bricks at around age 4 and is known as self-consciousness or meta-self-awareness. At this age, a child first realizes that the image in the mirror is not just me, which would be level 3, and not just me permanently, which would be level 4, but me that everyone else sees. But the little boy looking in the mirror does not immediately see one of the fundamental realities of human existence. He is definitely an omnivore. The best evidence is our teeth. We have biting, tearing, ripping incisors and canines like carnivores, and chewing molars like herbivores. There's an abundance of scientific evidence that we human beings evolved to be a predator ape. Our ancestors were highly skilled hunters, and meat was widely eaten, shared, and highly prized. The overwhelming majority of carnivores prey on other species and therefore employ some sort of violence in order to acquire their meals. Hence, it should be no surprise that humans developed an ability and probably a predilection towards violence in competing with the rest of the world to survive and prosper. The truth is that boys become men intentionally with the guidance of community from both the masculine side and the feminine side. Male rites of passage often include a young boy between the ages of 10 and 12 being taken away from his mother for a period of time to live with elder men, strong men that would cut off his nurturance from his mother in order to teach him to individuate from her as a man. These rituals were often very taxing to the boy. He would typically be pushed to his edges, which often included fasting or other forms of starvation from nutrients, physical edges pushed, and confronting mortality. Through the ritual, he formed a relationship with death, which would then help the boy find his place in the cosmos as the natural universe as a man. The point is that being a man is differentiated from being a boy. Other boys couldn't take him through the process. Women and girls couldn't guide him through the process. Only the community of men could do it. Of course, women had their rites of passage as well, and today there are many variable components of what women and men experience. But still, it is considered generally that boys will learn how to be men from other men. If asked what are the attributes of a good man, common responses include being caring, putting others' needs before yours, and being honest. When asked what are the qualities of a real man, a group of college students responded, take charge, be authoritative, and take risks. One student said it means suppressing any kind of weakness. Another said, I think for me, being a real man meant talk like a man. And another young man who'd grown up in Turkey said, walk like a man, never cry. But then there is a more nuanced version. A real man is what young folk might call old-fashioned. Chivalry is not dead. A real man has manners, is polite, and considered. He is honest and open and true to himself. He will fight for and defend the people that he loves. He is a hard worker. He is not spiteful. He respects women and shows appreciation for all his blessings. Often, a real man is the provider of the family. He is strong physically and mentally, and is never too proud to exhibit strong emotions. Once committed, he is faithful to his significant other. He does not disrespect her in any way. He helps with housework and is a role model for his children. A real man knows who he is, what he wants, and is grateful for what he has. Research shows that there's little difference between male and female brains at birth. But there are those who see the exaggeration of some of the supposedly real men traits as what is called toxic masculinity, and is a narrow and repressive description of manhood, designating manhood as defined by violence, sex, status, and aggression. It's the cultural ideal of manliness, where strength is everything, while emotions are a weakness, where sex and brutality are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability to simply not being hypersexual, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. Since the 1960s, a new type of man has evolved. That is a snag, which means sensitive new age guy. The abbreviation SNAG, S-N-A-G, is used to describe a man who emphasizes his caring, sensitive qualities over those characteristics that are typically considered more masculine. A snag is a man who has feminine characteristics such as being very timid and sensitive. According to some, he lost the core qualities of masculine man because he was raised by emancipated females and a society that told him how important it is to be nice to women. A snag is frequently a derogatory term, similar to the definition of a nice guy or a wussy. Men's masculinity is something that is elusive. It must be earned and tenuous. It must be continually proven in some minds. Put differently, men can easily lose their sense of masculinity, and in turn, when it is challenged, they respond to restore it. One prominent way males try to restore their masculinity is through aggression. More recently, emphasizing hypermasculinity has become a tool and a weapon in our political culture wars. Demonizing homosexuality is, most obviously, a way for Putin to assert Russia's superiority over the West. The West's acceptance of homosexuality is given as proof of its moral and social collapse. Putin also sees correctly that the equality of all sexual orientation is widely proclaimed in the West, but not uniformly accepted, allowing Russia to pose as a beacon of hope for Western reactionaries. To make homosexuality seem truly evil, even to Russians who had ceased to think of it as such, Putin conflated it with pedophilia. If in the age of old anti-Semitic narrative, they were conspiring to steal the nation's money, in Putin's anti-gay narrative, they are conspiring to steal the nation's children. Identity has always had its political facets, as we seek to be who we want to be, and that puts us in league with some communities, and those who want us to be who they think we should be, which addresses the politics of other communities. In August 2020, there were rising demonstrations against the Polish right-wing political party that recently campaigned against gay rights as a way of winning power in the country. Article 196 of Poland's Criminal Code states that a person who offends the religious feelings of others by publicly insulting a religious object or place of worship may face up to 2 years in prison. The government has defended the authorities' actions against the activists, saying certain boundaries of tolerance were crossed. Such paranoia has surfaced in the far-fetched conspiracy activity in the United States known as QAnon. QAnon is the umbrella term for a sprawling set of internet conspiracy theories that allege, falsely, that the world is run by a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who are plotting against Mr. Trump while operating a global child sex trafficking ring. Though the Federal Bureau of Investigation has warned that QAnon poses a potential domestic terror threat, it has increasingly become mainstream, being embraced by a number of Republican politicians and flirted with by President Trump himself. The women's movement can move ahead with the active support, involvement, and encouragement of men, or fall behind as men, especially young men, take up arms, being the quiet but active angry men's movement. The conflict is playing out in politics right now. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are tapping into what can be called the lean-out generation of young, discouraged, and angry men who are feeling abandoned by the thousands of years of history that defined what it meant to be a real man, to be strong, to be a provider, to be in authority, to be the ultimate decision maker, and to be economically, educationally, physically, and politically dominant. A growing percentage of young men are being out-earned by young women, as women capture 60% of the higher education degrees required for success in today's economy. Society's rigid definitions about identity are softening. As science and understanding progresses, we learn that most of the things which appear simple and clear, whether they are gender, race, or sexual orientation, are far less black and white. Identity is a multiplicity, and one which is constantly evolving and transient. When we pay attention to one aspect of our identity, we can elevate it in primacy and importance. Sometimes that change may be permanent, and other times it may be temporary. Individuals are a complex mix of interacting characteristics. Identity is a choice between these characteristics. It is in fact countless small choices about characteristics and behaviors, all of which aggregate into our sense and external appearance of a single, formed, coherent identity. In order for society to accept that identity is a fluid concept, we will have to wrestle with these conflicts and try to organically define what it means and how we choose to incorporate them into our lives, laws, and interactions. Thank you very much for your kind attentions. Please use your hearts and minds for good and useful purposes, and please be safe and healthy.